Hello everyone, Rich Carlton here. Welcome to another awesome day. I'm going to move Jacob's little label off my forehead, which is awesome. We are adjusting our trajectory here. We're back in the Santa Clara office here in sunny Santa Clara, California. And welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of fmtraining.tv, where we're teaching everyone how to build great FileMaker custom applications. Today's broadcast is about SSL certificates. This is kind of a retread, a little bit of a video that's going to be coming to the pro course shortly. Jacob did a complete end-to-end re-record of how to build an Amazon AWS server, and as part of that he did the SSL certificate, but we're going to do this live for you today. Elzo's question, which is not here anymore, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I'm going to bring Jacob up here. But the question is now we did cover this in a video. Now, so I'm not going to hold it over Elzo's head that he should know that we cover this in our FileMaker deployment video, but we cover like what should I use, FileMaker Server or FileMaker Cloud. And anymore when we say cloud, pretty much, especially if you're talking about buying it, we're talking about cloud too. And so let's just pretend that Elzo doesn't have my training, and so he wouldn't know this, right? But if he had my training and watched the video, then he would know this stuff. So what Jacob Taylor, if you were going to advise someone, I have less than 5 users, say 3 or 4 users. They were on FileMaker 15 or 16. Now they're moving to 19, and they're using they've been watching a video, some other videos, lean design. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing some great stuff. And they want to, but you really can't use shared hosting anymore, which is where, I have people come to me going, Richard, we hosted our database for 20 people. And it only cost us like $25 a month to host it for 20 people, right? They bought Pro for everyone, then they would do the shared hosting thing. That is a subsidized service that is below what we would consider fair market value of that service. It's what happens. We did a little bit of that years ago, but we stopped it because you just start looking at it objectively and you realize, A, it's very hard to do it legally in a profitable way. And of course, Clariston stopped all the shared hosting. So you're going to have to go to a server that you own. So that's a standard thing, right? So let's establish, one, you're not going to steal the software and you're going to be legal. So rule one, we're assuming we're legal. Then rule two is that you're going to have your own server. Now, whether the server is in your office or in your basement or it's up in the cloud, you have to have your own server. And so you're going to have to pay for that. The cheapest, if you can get like a used, if you're a Mac person or Windows person, you could probably get a decent computer all set up for, say, with solid-state drives and everything for like $500. But then you have to maintain it. And then you have to maintain the electricity and the internet, the backups and all that stuff. So maybe it's better to put it on Amazon. So we will let you decide where you want to put the server. The server needs to be as close to the people as possible, okay? And so the question that normally comes down is what do you want your FileMaker application to do? So let's ask the question. So if it does Pro, Go, or WebDirect, you can do Cloud 2 or FileMaker Server, okay? If you want to do public-facing websites, which normally you would do with PHP or the data API, stuff like that, that is not supported despite everyone else saying this. But if you ask Jesse Barnum, who I trust, and a bunch of other people, Cloud 2 doesn't support that. They try to pretend they do, but they don't really, it doesn't really work. And so if you want public-facing web connectivity, you must use FileMaker Server. You can't use Cloud 2. What other deciding considerations are there, Jacob, that you would think about?
There is, I'd say, it cuts a couple different directions. Two that I can think of that are really good. You kind of touched on one of them previously, which was right. If you have a server in your office, for example, someone's got to maintain that. And so, kind of, if you don't have strong feelings between FileMaker Cloud and a FileMaker Server, or there's not something we've already said that precludes cloud or says, oh yeah, we should be using that, then think about, can you support it? So if we set you up with a FileMaker server on Amazon or a FileMaker server in your office, or perhaps you're a bigger company and you have your own data center or a rented space or something like that, is there either someone in the organization or perhaps a department, if you're of that size, able to maintain the FileMaker server, tend to the backups, that sort of thing, restore it when it goes down, whatever? Does that capacity exist? If nothing else excludes it and you don't have that capacity, I might recommend cloud for you, because you don't have to pay attention to any of that. The other because, sorry, to be clear, Claris kind of does all of that for you. The other consideration that I would point out, and it mostly doesn't matter, but you can get yourself into a corner with it, is that the plugins, if you're going to be using them on the server side, for example, 360works email or something like that, that's actually a bad example, but it's one I know all of you have heard of. The plugins themselves, the code has to be made for FileMaker Server versus FileMaker Cloud. They have to build the code differently for FileMaker Cloud. And so there's a chance, depending on the plugin, that it may not be supported on cloud, actually.
Well, let me ask a question. Let's talk about, when we talk about cloud, we're talking about this service that Claris has where they put basically they're supposed to put the service and the hardware together. There's this older service called Cloud 1. It's been deprecated. A lot of people still have it. They're going to have to move to Cloud 2. So let's talk about Cloud 1 did have support for these Linux-based compiled plugins. Cloud 2, do they have plugin support? I don't think they do. Cloud 2.
I don't want to commit to an answer. I would assume that that support would carry over.
But you have to have command line access to install it, and you don't get command line access to a Cloud 2 server, do we? You can't really
No, you don't get you do not get command line access to it, but you do not necessarily need command line access because you can install plugins from within FileMaker to the server itself.
Okay, well, I would consider it sufficiently sketchy that you need to be careful. So a lot of people run plugins and they run them on Pro. And they don't really run them on server too often. The reason you really run on server is because Go doesn't run a plugin and WebDirect doesn't run a plugin, so you have to kind of put it on the server and jury rig it. So if you have a Go client or a WebDirect client and they need to run a plugin like an email plugin or something, then you really need to. We should know this, Jacob. So we get like an unhappy face, a negative happy face. We should know this. We need to check that. But I'm pretty sure there's some issues with that. Another issue is SASE, server-side script, server-assisted script execution. So that is a scheduled or server scheduled. SASE, it's server-assisted script execution, but it's the one where it's on it's like on the backup schedule. You set it for every hour or once a day or whatever. It runs a FileMaker script for you. PSOS works on both. You don't have to worry about that one. That's like a have to have it. That's where your FileMaker client calls it and the server does a script. That's support on both Cloud 2 and FileMaker Server, but scheduling it like have it run every day at 1 o'clock at night. That you can't schedule that with Cloud 2. So if you have a script, so if you want the server to run a script, your client has to trigger it, which means if you want to run at 1 in the morning or something, one of your clients has to make that request, whether it's on a clock or a calendar, or you have to make sure someone's logged on and they press the button. It's kind of goofy. So if you're dependent upon schedules, like Nick Hunter loves that stuff, Cloud 2 is out. So once again, the question, I think a big one is who's going to support it? Also, are you going to support it? Who's going to support the server? If you don't have any, part of this is like two crossing items, right? Basically, if you say, it's like there's like one of my engineers used to say, you can have high quality if when you're coming to a consultant to build a project, or you're going to anyone to build a project, you can ask for, I want really great quality, I want a really great cheap price, or I want it done really fast. You can have two of those, but you can never have three of them. So you can have cheap price and done really fast, but then you might have lower quality. If you want really great quality but a cheap price and it might take longer, you can never have all three. So if you have no money, okay, then that automatically limits what you can do. And then if you don't have any technical expertise, well, no technical expertise means that you have to put it on Cloud 2, right? But then you say, oh, but I need public facing web access. Those are three incompatible items, right? So if you don't have your own IT people that can deal with the Amazon server, you need to give it to Cloud 2. Just understand that now you're going to have to live with certain concrete limitations. The only way around that is to decide that you're going to pay someone like Jacob Taylor or some other consultant a service fee to babysit that server at a very high level. We don't normally support servers 24/7. We've had a couple universities and major corporations say, Richard, we trust your team, we love your team. We want to pay you like a hot standby fee. So if the crap melts, we can dial, get out the red phone, like the bat phone, call the Batman and call him in, right? And the red phone rings, and we always answer 24/7. And so we would set up a phone number that would rotate, and it would ring 3 or 4 different engineers, and one of them would answer the phone. And if that engineer answered it, then they would get like a bonus on overtime or something, right? And they would take care of it at 3 in the morning if the server went down, right? So you're going to have to do something like that. Somewhere, some way, somehow, you have these competing items, and you have to figure out what you can do. I was asking if you have a vertical market solution like Amazing Widgets, and she sells Amazing Widgets to 5 companies, and they're all logging on to the same file, I guess. You're providing that as a service. That's really an SBA kind of capability. The server rules for you are more relaxed, Carol, if you were part of the SBA program. You could actually do shared hosting in that case. Shared hosting is where multiple companies share one server. That's only applicable if you go through the SBA program, you apply and go down that road. But and most use, when she says at all plugins, does that mean they are using plugins or not using? It's like a little shorthand. When she says they use email at all plugins, if the plugins are running locally, then yeah. I mean, it's once again, it's not a conversation of so much, if you have hardware or not. I think it's a conversation of, do you have the ability to support the hardware? Anyone could go buy a computer online, right? I guess I'm not understanding it in the plugins. Yeah, she's typing and working at the same time, but yes, on plugins. So they're using plugins at the client level. If you're not using them on the server, then you can use Cloud 2, right? Cloud 2, once again, Go, Pro, WebDirect, client plugins for Pro only, no plugins for Go or WebDirect. PSOS, yes. SASE, no. Some level of tech support, yes. All right, so let's talk about SSL certificates. You want to share your screen, Miles? Jacob Taylor, are you ready to share your screen?
Miles would love to share his screen. Yes. Can I? Let's see. Share my screen. We're going to pick the second one. Make sure everybody that looks good. You see a server and maybe some GoDaddy in the background.
We do see a server. So why don't you cover today what the hell we are doing and why does it matter?
So, all right. So yeah. So sort of the greater context for SSL. It's like, all right, cool. Yeah, you'll go pay $60 or $80 for one of these things, but like, why? Why do I need one? Why do I want one? Those are great questions. So out of the box, FileMaker does actually ship, and I believe I misstated this on a previous stream at some point, or maybe in one of our videos, that FileMaker Server doesn't ship with an SSL certificate. It technically does, but it doesn't have a name on it, like the DNS name for that server. And so one of the problems with that is if for example, you're either FileMaker Go client, FileMaker Pro, web browsers if you're going to be doing WebDirect. When those go and access whatever your database as a server resources, they won't be able to validate that the connection is secure. And there are additional sort of the browser or FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Go can like mathematically verify, yep, not only do I know I'm talking to the correct server, I can chase the chain all the way down and confirm, everybody has endorsed this, say this connection, this certificate. That's what certification authorities do. That's actually what you're doing when you purchase an SSL certificate. Is you're taking your little thing to them and saying, "Sir, would you bless my certificate?" And they go, "Okay," and they give you a blessed version of it. And so what that lets your FileMaker Pro, your FileMaker Go, your web browser, whatever, it can go and check and say, oh yeah, the server, you connect to the server, I'm going to log into my database. The server says, here's my certificate. And so out of the box, you've done nothing here. FileMaker, here I'll actually show it. I cleared this one out. It comes with a certificate, right, that just says FileMaker on it. It says, Claris test certificate, not for production use. So your connections are encrypted, but your browser, your FileMaker Pro, your FileMaker Go is going to look at that and go, I don't know who that is. That's like Bob's certificate. And so when you purchase a certificate, for example, from GoDaddy, you're going to take your request to them and they'll give you the cert back. When you install that, the way that this changes is that when you do that very same thing, you're connecting to FileMaker Server, again, web browser, FileMaker Pro Advanced, FileMaker Go. Those programs will validate that connection and they'll say, oh, right, I have a signature here from GoDaddy. GoDaddy says we're good to go. The name that I've punched into FileMaker in the hosts menu, FileMaker Go or FileMaker Pro, or the domain that I put in my web browser, all the names match. You've got myserver.company.com, and everything all the way down says that GoDaddy's endorsed it. Everybody's sort of in agreement, and there's some mathematical stuff I'm ignoring in there because it doesn't matter so much. But basically, they endorse it, and your computer can prove that, can verify that. If that's the case, you get that lovely green checkbox or the little green lock. And so what that actually does is that certifies that everything, all of the different parts of the software that are involved in this, are in agreement that you are connected to the correct server. And that's very useful because it means you've authenticated that you're talking to the correct machine on the internet, basically. So, for example, it would probably be a bad thing if you had very important customer information. It might make more obvious sense if you're in we'll say an interesting industry and you're connecting to the wrong server. That's a very big risk for industries like that, especially if one of the things that you manage in your FileMaker database is intellectual property of some sort or another. It would probably not be a good idea if someone could impersonate that connection, get in between you and your server and grab your stuff off the wire. That's not good. So
Canberra 57 has a question. I have a server that sits on our internal network. I heard that there's a way to use homegrown SSLs.
Yes, that is correct. And for a little additional technical detail on that, that is correct. When you are kind of the system administrator of all of the things that might be connecting to your FileMaker server, for example, so this especially applies in a Windows domain environment. If everybody's sort of in the office or perhaps even working at home, but they're all domain-controlled computers. When you are the administrator like that, you can install your own. Like a certificate authority is a big company. That's how you usually think of that. Think of GoDaddy or something like that. But you can technically become your own certificate authority. So if you have control over the computer, you can then install that certificate authority in all of the computers that you control, and then that certificate authority can sign those certificates. So it's the exact same conversation we just had. The computers will connect, but they'll look at the thing that you installed on their computer rather than GoDaddy or some of these other companies for that verification, and they'll find it. It'll work just normally. So
well, okay. So GG on Twitch asked the question. I'm just calling GG because I don't Giandria, right? Do you need a certificate when you're on a local network, right? Well, I mean, do you need one for security? Probably not. Do you need one because Claris kind of likes that to a degree? Kind of almost yes, right? So yeah. I mean, with FileMaker Server, you don't have to, but with Cloud is mandatory. If you use FileMaker Cloud with Cloud 2 or Cloud 1, SSL is mandatory. That you cannot not have it. Right, you must have it. So if you have the FileMaker server in your own network and people are not really accessing externally, then yeah, not really. So David, sure. David Angel says, what happens in case of iPad? Right, so he's over there on the Discord side, right? So okay, Jacob, you can't type.
Yeah, I don't know.
You verbally have to respond.
Yes. No, I actually don't. No, and I don't know the answer to that question. My understanding of iPads is that they are as secure as iPhones, so I suspect it would be difficult, is the short answer. If it's possible, it would be difficult. I think you have to install something like a network profile or whatever those are called on the iPad. But if you are already running your own certificate authority and installing that on all the computers and signing your certs, that probably wouldn't be totally outside of your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But it's more stuff. So
yeah, well, if you initially you should go. Listen, file SSL certificates for FileMaker Server are not required. One, two, it will throw the little color icon up, so you know that it's not secure. It'll be red or orange or whatever color it happens to be. Okay, if that doesn't bother you, then you're fine. If it does bother you and you want a little green locky checkbox thing, then you need to invest in the SSL certificate. It's really that simple. Well, very interesting on that. And so, are you going to go through the process here and show this in more detail?
Yeah, we're gonna purchase one and install it. So we can do this kind of in two different parts, I think, which is we want to buy one and then we want to install it, and we have to make stuff to install. So I'm going to break that up. We'll just run through the purchase really fast. So for those of you who don't know, we generally recommend GoDaddy. It's not because we're like in love with them as a company or something like that, but the web page is pretty easy to use and they're okay. So you're going to end up, this is their homepage. I'm logged in already. We're going to go to more. This might be on the bar, but basically you're looking for web security. And you'll end up on the SSL certificate page right here. There's a whole bunch of other options. So I'll just run through these really fast. So this is the one that we're going to pick right here because you just want the one certificate for the server. There's another conversation to have here about WildCard SSLs specifically. Those are great and they make sense after, I think about once you have about 4 specific certificates, it starts making financial sense to just get a wildcard. There's other reasons why you might or might not want to do that. What a wildcard certificate is, for example, if we hosted all of our servers, like, our website's FM Training TV, if we started hosting all of our FileMaker servers on that domain, and we've got like server 1.fm Training TV and server 2 and 3 and 4 and so on, we ordinarily might have to get individual certificates for each of those, or for example, what these UCC SAN certificates is you can put up to like 5 names in one certificate is how they do that. And so it'd be like servers 1 through 5 .fmtraining.tv. So and that's why they're useful. It's basically a discount if you have like more than one but less than infinite, you can do like the cheap price and get a SAN certificate. These work fine as well. But let's say you're a big company and you've got like 27 servers, and yeah, maybe one of them's a FileMaker server, but all of it's hanging off your corporate domain like that. So you've got the FileMaker server and then you've got some web servers and some, I don't know, internal other application servers and what have you. So if all of those are going to be on your corporate domain, for example, it might make sense to get a wildcard certificate. And what that means is, in my example, it's anything at all .fmtraining.tv will validate correctly when you install that in the server. And so you can take that single certificate, the key and the the key in the certificate file and the intermediates or whatever, which we'll get to in just a minute. You can put those into any of those 20, 5, 10, 20, 100 servers that you have. They can all be on the same one, on the same certificate. And so it'll just be, you'll add entries in your DNS that'll say, there's this server, there's that server, there's this other server, and the none of that stuff matters. You'll connect and it'll validate immediately. That's really cool. So I'm going to go back. Let's see. Actually, we're going to do the purchase. So we're going to buy this. We're going to add to cart. For most of our customers, this is the one that you get. I usually tell people it's like $80 a year, and that's because they give you a lovely discount the first year usually. But you want to look at the running cost, not the cool discount that you get on the front end. So we're going to add this to cart. We'll see if this doesn't. Oh yeah, actually, hold on. There's one other thing that I want to look at that I want to tell you guys about because it's another question that I get from people. So I think that was on this list. So there's all these other ones here. So I talked about basically DV SSL certificates, which is what these are. There's EV, OV, SAN I mentioned, and wildcard I mentioned. So EV and OV are the other two to talk about. Companies like these or ask me about these. Basically, they're more expensive, and what they are is there's extended. It's EV is extended validation, and OV is organization validated. What those are is you will like make the purchase, and then you'll have to submit, in this case, I think corporate documents, and then EV, you have to like show some kind of identity proof to GoDaddy in this case, or whoever the company is that you're buying it from. And so what that does, or what that used to do, it doesn't anymore, and this is why I don't recommend them. What that does, or used to do, is, for example, on Internet Explorer, if you guys ever remember going to a big website like Microsoft.com or Google.com, the whole browser bar would glow green. It wouldn't not just a little green lock in the corner, but like the whole thing would glow at you like, green, we're good to go. That's what those were for. Now, the reason I don't recommend it anymore, frankly, is because they don't do that anymore. None of the browsers do that. They go with the green lock, and they're actually getting rid of the green lock over time.
Really?
And so, yes.
I thought they want people. Okay, why are they getting rid of?
There's a long conversation about that. The short version is what they learned, what Google learned specifically, and they shared this research with everybody, is that people don't actually understand what those locks mean. It doesn't give them enough information to make security decisions themselves, right? Because that's the expectation, that you're going to look at the web address and know that you're supposed to be connecting to which server, which page you should be on, things like that. People, regular users, do not actually understand things like that. And the web URLs, the SSL locks, and all that stuff, like that was our attempt at like trying to give them the information so that they can make those decisions. And it just turns out that it's not the case. Like, people can't do it in general. Highly technical users definitely can. Like, of course I can. I know exactly what page I'm supposed to be on and all that stuff. But just for the general public that are not technical, they don't know what any of those things mean, and they can't make good decisions with that information. And so browsers, one of the reasons, and tech people complain about this, of course, it's one of the reasons browsers are kind of taking tools like that away from people, is because most of the general public can't use those tools for anything useful. And so the browser is basically slowly over time taking on the responsibility for making those decisions, for detecting when it's a page that you're not supposed to be on. If you go to your bank login and it's not the right page, stuff like that. They're trying to give more affirmative feedback, where rather than just displaying some stuff around the edges that you might have to know to key into, they're going to give you a red block page that says, hey, we detected some funny stuff going on here. You may wish to abort, and if this is a financial page, please don't enter your login details here because we think it's wrong. And that is much clearer and tells people something, gives them direct advice as to what to do. That's harder, right? Because then the browser makers and stuff are taking on that responsibility. That's kind of in the other direction. But it makes sense on a broad scale for non-technical users, because the other stuff, they've done all kinds of studies. People don't understand what any of the little icons mean. So,
well, it's a good conversation. I'm glad we have it. I think for people here, there's more advanced people here for the most part.
Right.
And I it's not so much the fact that people don't understand what to do with it. For me, if I had a big, green or red indicator, I would know that SSL was funky, and if I was truly concerned about it, I would go find my IT guy and say, hey, what the hell's with the red checkbox? But I guess a lot of people wouldn't do that, and that's the point. And that's a real interesting, that's a user interface / user experience conversation, like a Nick Hunter kind of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So GG, a couple things. FM Bob says that went back to GoDaddy for SSL, good pricing and great support. GG, I did post a question there for you. Can you move a certificate from one version of FileMaker Server to another server like 18 and 19?
Yes. That's the short version. Yes.
Yeah, because the certificate is specific to your domain, your company. It's not specific to FileMaker at all, right? In fact, they don't have a clue that it's FileMaker. Nor do they give it, right? All they know is that piece of paper is organized and encrypted in such a way with your domain on it, and you were the authorizing person to create it. It could be installed in probably a bunch of stuff. It just happens that FileMaker Server can read that, right? So just understand these SSL documents are not specific to FileMaker. They're kind of generic. So.
Yep.
And then didn't we have a problem with oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the final note for these SSL certificates. The other reason that you may have someone, if you're a large company, who might want to have an EV or an OVSSL certificate is because they come with more insurance. Basically, that's one of the things I never talk about with SSL certificates. There's technically insurance that comes with them, and that's part of what you're paying for. That's what the small amount of money is. There's an insurance policy that comes with it. Some corporate lawyer departments, corporate legal departments, like to have excellent and broad and huge numbered insurance for things that are that they consider to be critical, and so that might be a reason that you'd end up with an EV or an OVSSL certificate, also because they come with greater insurance. So.
Now we were talking the other day. It became a joke that we had a customer who was trying to use a Ghetto SSL certificate, and then they were having problems. And so, can you just quickly revisit kind of what they did that you wouldn't have done, and why we were calling it the Ghetto SSL certificate?
Can you tell me more about why it was being called that? What were they trying to do?
It was like some super cheap ass, not approved SSL certificate.
Oh,
and then it wouldn't work.
I can tell you what can go wrong there. So the main thing, sorry, I'm like clearing this out so I can redo it so it'll go flawlessly through. The main thing that people run into if you go to like a bar, oh, that's a cute bug. Go to a bargain bin web, SSL company or something like that, and you can get the lowest possible price for it because you're trying to avoid spending money. So they don't like make that list of approved certificate authorities like as obvious as it used to be, because I think once upon a time it would refuse to install ones that weren't on the list, or there were actual real problems when installing the certificates into FileMaker Server directly. That stuff is no longer the case, but what I can tell you is if you go to some of those places that aren't supported, and there's a list somewhere, there's about 6 or 7 certificate authorities that Claris has kind of endorsed. If you don't go from one of those, my understanding is that FileMaker Go is where the problem is. Most other certificates, FileMaker Pro, I think uses the operating system for checking the certificates and stuff like that. Your browser, of course, does. But FileMaker Go, my understanding is it ships its own copy of all of the certificate authority information rather than utilizing the one that's built into the iOS operating system. And so it is like unable to validate those certificates basically. And so I don't know if that means it will actually reject you or if you'll just have to override the secure connection, but you should avoid being in that position in the first place, frankly.
Yeah, Charles just wrote over here. He says, "Wish they would integrate services like Let's Encrypt, Bypass, etc., into FileMaker Server for managing certificates."
Yes, that would be lovely. I'll just note though, there are operational challenges with that, and it's one of the reasons why RCC doesn't do that. So when you do Let's Encrypt, that is a free. For those of you who don't know, that is a free certificate. It's not a company, actually. It's a nonprofit. They're wonderful, and I actually do love them. But they are great for websites, particularly because web servers, that specific piece of software, when you restart it for a new certificate, it goes down, it comes back up. There's no waiting or work, and you don't kick people off or like. It's much less disruptive, and it only takes a second. So, but that's that exact same thing that makes it easy when you're doing it on a website is difficult in FileMaker Server, because FileMaker Server actually installs the SSL certificate into itself and then has to restart the FileMaker Server software in its totality, and that requires closing all the files, kicking everybody off, shutting down the server software and bringing it back up again and all that stuff.
Well,
and so
yeah, do me a favor, because you skimmed over this, and the only reason I know the answer is because you explained this to me about 2 years ago. You kind of skimmed over what Let's Encrypt is. Doesn't this thing like reissue SSLs like every 90 days or something? How's that work?
Maximum 90 days. Yeah, they usually renew every 60.
Okay, so what does that mean? So every time you restart your web server, or every 60 days, it just automatically goes and gets a new SSL certificate?
Correct. And then when it does that, it restarts your web server. Yeah. To load the new.
So it issues like a shell command or something to Apache, for example, or IIS to restart that service.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yes. So that's actually what RCC's websites do right now. They're all on Let's Encrypt.
Yeah, the problem is I think we were trying to do that, play with that with FileMaker Server, and one is that the servers don't automatically kind of boot everyone out and restart happily every night, right? We don't do that. And so it became much more of a manual process. When we restarted the server, the SSLs would drop, and it was kind of a. So yeah, it would be nice if they did that, but it's. I think Claris, once again, Claris wants to invest in this Cloud 2 technology or whatever they have beyond Cloud 2. I mean, I think we'll see some of that next week, I guess. They that gets into a, kind of the futures and stuff. We can talk about that tomorrow more tomorrow, but I want to get through this install today. So I'll keep going, Jacob.
Yep. So I'm just going to buy this. The reason that this right here, actually what you're staring at is the reason why we recommend GoDaddy specifically, is because you notice I haven't had to put any domain information in here. This is incredibly easy for clients, for CEO level people that aren't necessarily in your technical stuff. You guys will recognize.
Yeah, you're talking about me. Just be nice, okay? So.
I'm in fact not talking about you. You have bought SSL certificates before, but some others, if you have somebody with purchase authority inside the organization, you can send them into this, and I'm gonna hit done, and that's it. Like, I haven't put in any domain information, none of that stuff. Okay, yeah, okay. Scott in Discord says I'm talking about him. So yes, Scott, I'm talking about you now. But I haven't needed to put anything in here. I'm going to hit purchase, and that's going to be it. Hopefully it purchases. Excellent. Love it. Great. So we'll have that now, and so we'll go through this. Hey, there's my email. Great. I'm sure that'll come up over on my other side, and you guys might hear the ding. I
can't bear 57. I will get to your questions today, but I want to let him finish this first.
Yeah, I want to run through this really fast. So we've purchased that, and ding, I heard the ding. So we have that in our account now. So I'm going to go over here, go to visit my account. I'm going to see my standard SSL certificate in here. Wonderful. And so we're going to set that up is what we're going to do. But as you've noticed, we don't have a domain yet. So I'm going to skip a tiny part of this because we don't need to do the DNS or any of that stuff, because we're reusing this 360works server that you all saw previously. This was one of the spokes. This is the one from Virginia, in fact. And so what we're going to do is we need to generate this SSL certificate. Now, there's two ways to do this, and I'm only going to show one of them. The way that we're going to do is there's the FMS admin command line utility that can generate SSL certificates for you. And then the other way is if you were to, for example, use like an OpenSSL command line utility directly. To be honest, that is how I personally usually do it. But that's because I end up generating them just on my own actual Mac and then putting them on the server instead of doing it directly on the server. But for demonstration purposes, we're going to do it sort of within FileMaker. So since I don't even remember the command, we're going to do this together. So you can use the help command. This is FMS admin. This is you can do this on the server. You can do that, and so you can do FMS admin help and lots of other things. But certificate, I know, is the part that we're going to do. So let's see, if we look at this documentation here, we're going to do FMS admin, and so the things that we're looking for are the actions. So we're going to certificate. We're going to create, it says we're supposed to do. And then here are the examples that you all want to look at right here. This is what most people use right here, basically. And that's what we're going to use today, actually. That's like that top example right there is the most common one. So you're going to pass two pieces of information. One is, again, that domain that is pointing at your server. This is an A record and DNS, if you want the technical details on that, pointing at the server's IP address. And then the second thing is we're going to put a password on that key file. So I'm going to pull up my FileMaker because I've forgotten what the domain is. That one. Okay, wonderful. So we're going to create, we're going to be 1701b, 1701b, yeah, .atrcc.com. And then we're going to put that password in. So we're going to do key file pass. And we're going to use the most super secure password ever of password 123. Don't actually do that. You should come up with something more complicated. I recommend capitals, uncaps, maybe a symbol in there somewhere, an asterisk, or one of those curly braces or something like that. So we're going to do that. Oh, and I have to Wonderful. All right. So what that has done is it has put, I forget, I don't think it'll show us immediately. I'm going to check this just to see. It does not. Nice. Okay, wonderful. So what we actually just did is, I'm going to browse to this because this is where we basically just generated files on disk. So we're going to go into program files, the FileMaker server directory. All the super secret security stuff is stored in CStore. And I'm going to order by date modified. And so that's going to be, is that today? Is today really the 30th? Wow. So what we just did is we generated these two files, basically, the server key and the request. The request is what we're going to actually use here. So I'm going to edit this. So this will be the contents. So when you I'm going to use this because I'm going to copy and paste it to GoDaddy basically. But when you generate one of these, the two files that we generated was the key and the request. So you give the request to GoDaddy, they sort of verify all of the details potentially, and then give you the certificate back. And then what you will install later, which is what we're going to get to very shortly, is you're going to install the key, the certificate itself, and then the certificate will come with an intermediate certificate file. And you do want that. So we're going to do setup. And it's going to say, hey, and we're going to say, great, we have one new certificate. Fantastic. We're going to input a CSR. So this is a lovely convenience to choose a domain here. So if we, for example, if we had all of our company domains in this GoDaddy account, and we bought the SSL certificate on the same one, this would be like a big, it's like a typing box right now, but it'd be a big drop-down box with our domains in it, and we could pick, something atrcc.com, and it'll even give you, if you have subdomains like in the GoDaddy DNS, like that's how you're managing everything all in one place. It'll give you that stuff, so you can just pick it and say, yep, and I want to give you, give you the CSR for it or whatever. In this case, we're going to input the CSR. And actually, I didn't copy it, so I need to. Copied it. I'm going to paste this. Wonderful. And yep, see, that looks right. Wonderful. So we're going to do continue. Yes, that looks excellent. So we're probably going to end up with doing that, I think. We're going to agree. And those emails, I don't know if I can go back. I can go back. Perfect. So these emails, these are like standardized emails that everyone should have on their domains. I know most people actually don't have these on their domains, but all of these are technically supposed to exist. RCC has most of them actually. So that people can email us. Services on the internet, if we are having a problem, services on the internet can email us. This is our service domain, atrcc.com, so there's no email or anything like that on it. So those are going to go into a black hole. But so we're going to agree to this. I actually don't know why you would use Starfield. I think that's for legacy applications, I believe. That's my understanding. That's what I think. So we're going to hit go. We're not going to do anything with this, and I think it's going to email me about this. They thanked me for my order, so let's see if I get an email about this. We may have to do something with the DNS. It's possible. It may automatically validate itself though, because as you guys saw, we have the WildCard certificate. I call it the asterisk certificate on this account as well, which means I may have already validated it, so it may just automatically go. But there's basically two ways to accomplish a validation. One of them is you'll need to go into your DNS panel for your web domain, which may be on GoDaddy, maybe even in a different company. RCC uses multiple companies for our stuff, so we have domains in one place and then DNS stuff in another, specifically for our high value stuff. You may have to go in. Yes, our high value stuff. So in that case, what you'll do is you'll either do one of two things. There's a domain validation pathway where you basically put a file that GoDaddy will give you. It's like a secret. You can't know it ahead of time. They'll give you that file, and you've got to put it in a particular place on your web server. In this case, on our FileMaker server, and then GoDaddy will check that that's there. And so that's one way to prove control over the domain, is that you're able to modify files directly on the server by adding them, stuff like that. The other way that they do it, as I mentioned, is that DNS. And so what they might ask you to do is they'll give you it's called a TXT record, which is it's text, and so they'll give you a little snippet. Of text. It's maybe 30 characters or something like that, and you'll have to put that on your domain. And so then GoDaddy will go and look at your domain and they'll check it and they'll say, oh, hey, they put that chunk of text we gave them on there. Great. And so that proves that you can control it, basically, because you made a change that they can confirm with information you would not have known at the start, for example. So I don't know what we're waiting on here. Let's see. We are waiting on domain control. I have not received any new emails from GoDaddy, which is what I'm hoping for.
Canberra's got a comment there, says, I can understand that they are not the... Oh, he's talking about EAR and SSL. So he was asking... I'll deal with this real quick. So Canberra's asking about EAR encryption. That's where you actually encrypt the actual FileMaker FMP12 file itself. For everyone who knows or doesn't know about this, it's a level of security, not so much across the wire from hackers on the internet. It's more about hackers or someone who gets physical control of the machine or a copy of the file. If it's EAR encrypted, they can't get into it. It would take a supercomputer to kind of hit against it.
Yeah, I think Canberra is asking about whether they can, let's see, close the file. So yeah, if you connect to the server, like you're remote desktoping on it or something like that, and you open up FileMaker on the server, and then do the encryption with the developer utilities, yes. I'll just warn you though, that there's a high likelihood of shooting yourself in the foot with that, actually, and that is because when the file is on FileMaker Server, if you have any external container data, it is stored outside the file in a different way than if you're using the file like locally on your desktop or something like that. And so you have to be careful to like rearrange the container data and then arrange it back again afterwards, which is kind of annoying.
That's right, because there's a path change difference there. I ran into that the other day. I can't remember. God, I should figure that out and shoot a video on that, because it's one that I intermittently get burned by.
Yep.
Yep. I'll add that to my...
We were going to have that one client that we went back and forth for a while. They had about 30 gigs of external container data and needed assistance with that, because you have to bring the container data up so it's next to the database, do the EAR, and then once the EAR is completed, so EARing the database also, I believe, re-encrypts or at least reprocesses all of the container data. So it has to be there. If you do the EAR and the container data is not there, I think the EAR process fails, is my understanding, and because it can't find any of the files. And if you put it there, it'll like reprocess everything, and then you take whatever that EARed output file, and then you have to put everything back again, and then make the file live. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to EAR and unear and EAR and unear. I just think you'd either go one way or the other. My biggest problem with EAR is that people say, yeah, one ear, yeah. And then these are the same people who lose their PIN number to their ATM and crap like that. And so they lose permanent access to the file like for forever, right? And so it's kind of scary. So sometimes we say, hey, let's not EAR it. And then, or if we're going to like write the code down, you're going to write it down. People, I literally tell them, remember it used to be the joke, don't put it on a Post-it note on your desk. I tell people, put it on a Post-it note on your desk and 5 other places too. That way, after you moved on to some other company or whatever happens, and then you need to find that password, you can find it, right? So please put it on a Post-it note on your desk. It would be really awesome.
Yes. And gave us a certificate. Excellent.
Cool.
And yeah, per Scott Henderson made the comment about EAR open, and basically the comparison between open and secure storage for your container data. Yeah, EARing the database, I don't believe encrypts the externally stored container data if it's open storage type.
Okay, but that's a separate topic. So listen. So here's the deal with open storage. Don't do it. And it's not because I believe in encryption or anything like that. Listen, here's the deal. If you just do the generic rookie deal and you say make it open storage, even if a file is totally unsecure, I make the containers secure because it takes the files and it breaks them down to multiple component parts and it spreads them over a lot of directories. If you have open storage, FileMaker will take all the containers for the entire file and stick them in one directory. And so in an operating system, when you put 10,000 or 20,000 items in a single directory, your operating system can choke and quit working and or crash. And the number of SIMs always kind of increase a little bit, but there was times within the last 5-10 years where I could crash the Mac because there was too much open storage in a container in a single directory. And so I had to write my own routine to like put it in different directories. If you just do secure storage, it shreds it and then it breaks it across 50, 100 different directories that are in that little secure directory. And so it's not a problem. It's just an operating system limitation. I highly recommend you do it that way. If you don't, you're going to screw yourself just because there'll be a problem. So
yeah, and there are implications to that. Just to be clear, I want to address Canberra's comment too about insider threats. Basically, is thinking about that. All right, most businesses don't want to be distrustful of their employees, and that's perfectly understandable. But it isn't, and that might not even be quite the right way to frame it, because the other part that you can think about is not, for example, even if you are in love with your IT department, there's not necessarily a reason they need to be able to access those files open in the directory. And if they do, you might. If you have users that need that, you might question how that process works and if there's a way that you could make it more secure, because what that'll allow you to do in the future, if you're not doing this already, is limit everything to the users who need to log into FileMaker, and then within that, if you have the privilege set up to limit user classes of what stuff they can access. And so that'll limit, for example, which documents they could feasibly even get access to. And so you eliminate the whole conversation about, well, maybe the IT guys can see it, because maybe they're the only ones with access to the server directly like that or whatever. You don't even have to deal with that whole conversation. The container data is encrypted. It's out on disk. It's nice and scalable the way that you want it to be. And you just don't have to worry about that. You can build your solution to do the work of preventing the users who actually use FileMaker, the right ones, from accessing which things. So.
Cool. Questions we have. Where are we at? We're pretty much 11. Done here? Are we just about done?
Yeah, we're just about to be done. So I have to download this and then install it. So we're going to do, all right, so this is one of the not obvious things. As everybody here knows, we are installing this in a Windows server. For a lot of people, right. So I come over to this page, they go server type, and right, this is obviously kind of a list of operating systems. Maybe you might, Linux, Exchange is okay, IIS, Mac, whatever. So the problem is that we're not, so the obvious one here is, I get a lot of people that pick IIS here because, yeah, actually we're on Windows, so IIS is like the correct choice. It's super logical. The problem is that we are not giving the certificate to IIS. We are giving the certificate to FileMaker. And so FileMaker is what does the SSL certificate installation, technically, if you want to think about it that way. And so we hand over the pieces and say, hey, go. And it does the install work. So the issue with picking IIS here is that it'll give you the certificates formatted in a way that FileMaker can't understand, and so it'll refuse as a short version. It just tells you no, I can't do that. So we pick other, which gives you the certificate in the most generic form possible. So I'm going to download that. That's going to go show up on my computer. Let's see, submit. Yep, key file pass correct. Yeah, the content. Yeah, David Angel, you are correct, and you're going to paste in GoDaddy, and then you're going to wait for them to trust you. Yeah, so they're going to email you, or you're going to do the TXT record. Like I said, there's a third one. If you need to do the HTML, like I mentioned, there's a little code that you can put in an HTML file. That one's kind of annoying on Windows specifically because parts of it are just kind of hard on Windows. But they'll give you directions for how to do that. So if you can stringently follow directions, you'll be fine, basically. Okay, so here we now have our 1701B certificate that we did. So I'm going to extract. And we'll end up with our lovely folder here. So we're going to do the install because, oh, actually we're not going to do the install. We're going to log back in. So we're going to come in here. We're going to go to configuration. We're going to go to SSL certificates, and we're going to import. And so this will be what most of you will be doing. It'll be something like what I'm about to do. You're going to pick, so this certificate, from GoDaddy anyway, they name them hilariously. So you want this one. It's whatever, gobbledygook.crt. And then the intermediate is the other one that's cool. So we're going to have to do the GD bundle. And then actually the private key file, this part's going to be funny because I don't think I can type that in because I can't see the bottom of the window. This dialog doesn't work on small screens. So let's see. So we're going to go into FileMaker, and we're going to pick that key that we picked previously, right? That I showed you guys, like I ordered by date, and we see request. So we're going to pick this. Dun, 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 and that's your private key file specifically. We generated that earlier. I think this doesn't work. Yeah, because they pinned it to the window. Basically, the problem with it is this modal, the import certificate thing, it has like a minimum height from the top of the window, and it shouldn't. And so it means that if you're on a tiny short screen like we were, because we're trying to do 720, like you can't. It doesn't work. So so there's, oh yeah, password 123. That's right. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to do import, and it's going to give us a lovely little message. It'll be like dun dun dun. So we're going to restart. And so on Mac, you'll have to do this. I guess we're demonstrating on Windows. On Mac, all of this stuff is basically the same, except that FileMaker Server's in the library folder instead of program files, but that's basically the same thing.
Yeah, because Carol is asking the differences between, I guess, Mac and server. She says server type equals other on Mac too, or use Mac.
Yes. Yep. Server type equals other on both. Yeah. I think actually on Mac, technically Apache would get you the correct thing, but that's not worth. I would just pick other because that's always going to be easier, and it's an easier rule. Just pick other. So on Mac, and I want to note this because of these things, a couple of the file paths, right? You're going to be using Finder instead of Explorer, et cetera, et cetera. Mostly these processes are exactly the same. You'll open terminal instead of PowerShell, etc. But you guys know that you know the programs are somewhat similar. The command line program basically. So but the one big difference is on Mac, you'll need to do the restart on the command line as well. There isn't a like on Windows. I'll show you here. Actually, I'll hit OK and we'll do that. So I'm going to open the Start menu. We're going to go to Services. This thing doesn't exist on Mac. Like this way to manage all the system services and stuff. There are like ways to get access to this information, but not in a pretty right-click restart whatever sort of way. And so you might want to look up the command. David Angel, you should not classify them based. Sorry, he's confused about the different file type names. Don't classify them based on the file extension, the PEM versus CERT versus whatever, because you need to think about the different file names themselves. Yeah, the file extension matters because that's what format it's in, but often other companies other than GoDaddy, for example, will give you additional files that I have not even shown you here, and you'll be further confused. So you want to be able to look at the files that they've given you and know which ones are right. Often they'll give you something like a bundle, except for other companies they do call it the intermediate certificates, but it'll be in PEM format. For the certificate itself, they'll give it to you, and there might even be multiple just like that, where there was a PEM format one and a CERT format one. They'll do the same thing, except you'll want the CERT format one. So I can't give you a hard and fast rule on that because there's 600 odd certificate authorities if you're going to go with one of the other ones because you don't care about FileMaker Go at all. Then all of them do it slightly differently. So anyway, so to restart this, we're actually just going to do restart, and that's going to kill my stuff in the background. Technically, you want to close the files first, but there's absolutely nobody on this server right now. If there are people on the server, when I hit OK and I went to go restart the stuff, you want to close the files down and boot everybody off at that time. That's an excellent time to do that. And then you can come to the services menu and restart everything. But we don't doesn't matter so much because there's no one on this server right now.
Okay, so so to follow up with what to follow up with what he just Jacob just said is that if you tell the server to restart and it is possible for it to not shut the files all the way down and just to blow itself up, that can happen. So it's always better technically to ensure that you shut it down. And now someone say, oh, that was a bug. That was fixed in FileMaker version what? Except I wouldn't know that because Claris doesn't tell us generally when they fix bugs, right? It's
no.
And so
I've had they tell me that stuff is fixed, and I've had 18 servers. Not 18v4 so far, but earlier versions of 18 servers. I have had them because they're running for a very long time. If you don't close the files before you do something where you're restarting the FileMaker server software, it just crashes out. And so if those files are closed when it crashes out, we don't care. It's fine. Doesn't hurt the files at all.
But then if they, what are the rule, everyone? If we, not all the experienced people, the inexperienced people. Bunny's here. What is the rule if you crash a file on FileMaker server? What do? Bunny. Not Scott. All right, so then we'll wait for Bunny's answer. On the domain, there's a domain here. Gigi asked a question. I don't know what I should use for a domain. And I said, well, Gigi, what website do you folks have? And it's in there in Discord. If you look at that, Jacob, it says
their consulting site.
.it.
Right,
so
right.
It would be like happy database, or happy FMS dot. It's a subdomain. So you want to just walk vaguely through that real quick?
Yeah. So most of our customers pick names like FMS, FileMaker, FMP for FileMaker Pro, app dot if they're like not super into naming it after FileMaker specifically, just stuff like that. There's a couple of our customers that have named it based on the actual, not like their database name, but kind of the general application name, because they're going to have third parties that don't work for them logging into it and stuff like that. For example, via WebDirect. So it's kind of a personal preference on naming, to be honest. You could, name it Raja or or a flower, or whatever, right? And it's naming servers. So as long as you guys, if it's only used internally, it probably doesn't matter that much. But
okay,
you can get interested with it.
So Carol did answer a question. If you crash your FileMaker server or any FileMaker file and you like the file, you always use the backup. You don't use the crashed one. So good job on Carol with that. I think we lost Bunny in the process. And then you would register that subdomain with your registrar, right? First, right? Wouldn't you do that? Would you register the FMS with them or do an entry on with the domain?
That is, that was what I mentioned. You're putting that into as a DNS entry and a record. That may be, so if you've kept everything all in one place, that will be wherever you buy your domain. Most domain places these days, they handle the DNS end of it too. If you're a larger corporation, often you'll either separate those out for resiliency, liability, access, etc. purposes. And so there might be a different place that you go to edit the DNS settings, or you have IT people and you say, hey, I need this thing added, and they can either go up their chain for approval, or if you're their boss, then you tell them to do it. So, but yeah, basically you'll go to, generally for most of our customers, they'll go to the place that they get their domains from, and add that as an entry.
Okay, great, cool. And then once you have that, then you do this SSL process. So it's that step, the domain first, then the SSL, in that order.
David Angel, he asked, we inserted three files into the certificate. So that's three files into FileMaker Server. That's the certificate, the intermediates, and the key. So he asked which one were received from the certificate authority. So that's the certificate and the intermediates. I'm just calling them intermediates. They are intermediate certificates. There's a whole bunch of technical reasons for that nobody actually cares about, but you should put them in. If you have them, put them in. That's the short version. It guarantees a higher likelihood of a green lock in FileMaker, for example. And then the one of those three that was generated by the FMS admin command is that server key.pen. So. Okay,
so and then
David Angel, he's asking for registering a FileMaker server domain. You have to create an A record. Yes. Do not use a CNAME.
And then Carol just asked right behind that. So before I do the domain, I need a static IP. Yeah. So generally static IP first, then the domain. And the domain will point the A record
at the IP.
It'll point to the IP. Then once you have those 2 steps done, then you go to the SSL certificate people and you go down that road. And if it all sounds really stupid and crazy, just send an email to support at RC Consulting. And if you want to have Jacob spend an hour or whatever to helping you, that's fine.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that's generally SSL's done in an hour. We can usually, even if you've got crazy, hairy, wild stuff all over the place, we can usually figure it out in about an hour. So.
Yeah. So if you want to take a crack at it, or if you just want to save yourself the gray hair, then you can just skip the Jacob part. So just a matter of what you want to do. I mean, I've been there when my company was starting and was broke as piss and didn't have any money and had to do it all myself. And then you get farther along, and then you get some really good IT guys or gals, guys, whatever, loosely, that do the job. In fact, we have Masha. She is quite exceptional at Mac setups. We like her. Windows, she has no idea. Mac setup, she's quite good. So, cool. So yeah, right on. Okay, so tomorrow's going to be open Q&A day. Are we pretty much good at this point? I think we're done, right?
Yeah. We have an SSL. Oh, should I demo this here?
I guess you could.
Let's refresh. Hey, look, and we get our big lock, and it's all green, and we see the valid, and it's got our name on it. So. Check.
Very good. So we appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow for live stream. If you have questions, you want to continue the conversation, check us out at discord.com. As a reminder, for those of you who are lurking, definitely check out our live training schedule here at fmtraining.tv. Hit the button on the tab over here, the live button. And for those of you who have not bought our bundle, please go buy the bundle. If you're lurking, buy the bundle, because this helps support the channel. That way I can pay Jacob. Jacob wants to get paid for his time. He doesn't work for free. So that's how we do that. All right, everyone? Catch you tomorrow.